Hey, welcome one and all to another episode of the Feliz Energy Podcast. My name is Alex, and I'm here with my father, Franco. So, tell me, Pop, what are we talking about today?
Well, I want to talk about a lot of things, but for today, I want to talk about the importance of having a burning desire for change. And the reason I want to talk about this, as well as discipline, taking action, amongst other things.
Gotcha.
And I think it's so important to talk about that desire because it's what brings change.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to that point in your life where you see that the same thing that you've been doing for the past 10, 15, 20 years is not bringing the results that you want. You've seen slight improvement, but you're afraid of taking that next step. So you get to that point where you realize, you know what? Time is passing me by. Mm. And in my case, what happened was the death of my brother at the age of 52.
Yeah.
That was an eye-opening experience.
I remember.
Yeah, because it was something that none of us were expecting. I remember getting this phone call at 10 a.m. in the morning. And I could hear the agony in my friend Greg's voice. And he says to me, Frank, something is wrong. Rico just fell on the floor and the ambulance is on its way and I'll give you a call back. And he hangs up the phone. So I'm in a trance for like maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes tops. But to me, it feels like an eternity. And I get the call saying that Rico passed away. I bring that up not to bring sadness into what we're talking about, but that was a turning point for me. That was a turning point for me. It was an eye-awakening, like I said, experience. Something that I was like, wow. Mm-hmm. Do I want to live my life the way that I'm living it for the rest of my life? And at that moment, I was married. I had a very nice home in Kennesaw, Georgia, close to the mountains. We were living nice. But the question was, are you happy? Are you doing what you want to do? And the answer to that was a fast no. I didn't even think about it. That's when I knew that I had to make a change. Mm-hmm. 5 months passed by and my father, who was in the brinks of also dying at that moment, looks at me and says, like he used to talk to me, Frankie, how you doing? And he just got the urge to want to speak. He couldn't even talk, but he got the strength to ask me that question. And at that moment, I gave him a generic answer. Well, I'm doing fine. I'm great. I just got a new job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And he looks at me and says, no, that's not what I'm asking you. What I'm asking you is, how are you doing? Because if you're fine, then my other two will be okay. At that moment, I look at my mother, and my mother looks at me and shrugs her shoulders. And is like, what are you going to answer now? That moment was a turning point in my life. And I decided to come home a week later and have a conversation with my wife at the time. And I prayed because I had to get the courage to do so, to have that conversation of separation and divorce. At that moment, I understood that I had to make a serious change in my life. And that's where it came, where I started listening to podcasts. I started listening, like I spoke on our last episode. I started listening to Les Brown, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, amongst others. And those particular speakers, they're so powerful in the way they say things and the way they express themselves that allowed me to believe that I can make a change, that I had to make a change.
Yes. And Speaking on Uncle Rico's passing, although I can't say that my relationship with Uncle Rico was the closest, I starkly remember that experience of seeing everyone at the funeral and having the same thoughts run through my mind as well, that nothing is guaranteed in our life.
That's right.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing is guaranteed. And I also had those moments of reflection. We don't get many of these moments because of how fast-paced life is.
Yeah.
And it's by design. We are not living in a society that encourages self-improvement, self-development. Unfortunately, that is the truth. As hard as that is to hear, that is the truth.
Oh, 100%.
And so, in order for us to make progress in our life, we have to have moments of contemplation, reflection, so that we can ask ourselves whether or not we are living our truth, living fully aligned in our purpose. And I remember I was sitting down to have coffee with one of my friends. His name is Kelvin. And he inspires me in more ways than one because of how he lives his life, because of how he is setting that example, not only for me, but for those that he loves and cares about as well. Conversations with you that I've had on the importance of reflection as well. And I remember he asked me, "How are you doing?" And in that moment, before answering him, I thought about what my answer was going to be. The first thing that comes to our mind in response to that question is, how are my finances? How is my job doing? How is everything else doing? Not how are we doing?
Right.
And I remember when I answered that question, I remember that my response was, I'm living in alignment with my purpose. I've had to overcome probably the most challenging of circumstances in my life at that point in time. I had distanced myself from my religion, a religion that wasn't necessarily respecting or honoring my spirit the way that I truly wanted to live, right?
Right.
And in so doing, I had to cut myself off from a community that I was deeply entrenched in. I had to cut myself off from my family, who were not encouraging the flourishing of my potential. And that, to this day, I can say is the hardest, most challenging thing that I've had to face. It is not easy, but what I said in response to that question is that I have never felt better because I'm living my truth.
That's
as
awesome.
challenging
Yeah.
as that circumstance is.
And that's when you understand that life happens for you,
Yes,
not against you.
absolutely.
No matter how tough or the loved ones that you love and you've seen for most of your life pass on, you understand that those things are going to happen and that they make you stronger. Like you said earlier, they make you reflect. And when you reflect, my hope is that most of you out there take the time to really think, what is it that I need to do to change my life? What is it that I need to do to improve? Correct? And that moment is when you decide to take action. And taking action takes discipline. And discipline leads to results. The hard part of that is that it has to be consistent.
Yes.
Anything that you do in life, if there's no consistency, you will not get to your final goal. And it needs to be about you. It needs to be about more than you. Let me change that. It needs to be about bettering or making better the life of others, of people that are around you. It needs to be about serving others with people in mind, right? I believe, and I have a sincere belief, that in this world, you are here to live and to serve others.
Yes.
I sincerely believe that. I sincerely believe that if you're so selfish that everything around you and everything that's going on in your life is all about you, no matter what, then I hate to say this, but there's something seriously wrong with you.
Yes, and it comes to a mindset shift on what selfishness means. Because at the same time, we're both in agreement that there's no bigger, more important project than you.
100%.
So it's opposite sides of that coin.
Right.
What does being selfish mean? Are you truly selfish when you're defeating yourself, when you're not believing in yourself, when you are harming your body with the foods that you take in, your diet, your lack of exercise? Are you really being selfish? Is that really being selfish? Not necessarily, because you're hurting yourself at the end of the day. You're hurting others.
Right.
To truly understand what being selfish means is to understand that everything that you do will have a positive impact not only on yourself, but on others. You come first. If you don't rest well, if you don't take care of your body, if you don't eat right, how are you going to be able to do that? So you must put yourself first in that sense.
Right. I agree 100%. You have to take care of yourself. And in that sense, you have to be selfish. And you're going to come off as arrogant to a lot of people when you have this mindset. But it's not arrogance. It's actually what I call confidence. When you're confident about you, when you're confident about what you're learning each and every day, when you're confident about the way you look, when your body starts changing and people start recognizing that and seeing it, there's a certain air and aura that goes with that.
Yes. Yes. And as I like to say, the difference between arrogance and confidence is that arrogance is a combination of pride and ignorance. Confidence is a combination of truth and awareness.
I love it.
When you become aware of yourself, when you become aware of the ways in which you are being complacent, and you have that clarity in mind. And sometimes you'll forget because, again, life is moving very fast. You've got one thing after the next to do, which is why it's so important to have a group of people that are supporting you, a group of people that you can be in constant communication with that will remind you of where you're going.
Right.
It's very important to have that as well.
I would agree 100%. You have to have a group of people that have your back. And in that same tone, it's important to choose those people. And I think if you're in alignment with what you're trying to achieve in life, the right people will come into your circle. There is no doubt about that. Some things have happened in this period of improvement and self-discipline and that have happened in the past 8 months or year, you can say, that have completely transformed the way I think and the things that I do on an everyday basis.
And I've seen those changes.
And I was a top-notch gambler. I never thought that I would stop gambling. Never, ever, ever. You remember, sometimes you would come over to visit me and I'd be on the phone playing some kind of Texas Hold'em. And it was just a decision that I made. I took action and I said, you know what? I'm not going to gamble anymore because I felt that would hinder me from accomplishing the goals that I wanted to accomplish or that I want to accomplish in the next 2, 3, 5 years. I just couldn't see myself sitting at a poker table for 5, 10, 15, sometimes 24 hours, which when I think about that now, I'm like, wow, did I really do that? Did I take that much time out of my life, time that I will never get back, from improving myself, from becoming a better person in order to serve others? I just had to stop. And it was literally cold turkey. And we're going to talk about that, taking actions and how to, everybody has a different way of doing it, but how to take action and what things you need to do to take action. So we're going to stop this particular podcast at this very moment. We'll talk about more things in the future.
All right, Feliz family. We'll wrap it up for now. And until next time.
Always remember, if you don't live to serve, then you don't deserve to live.